Most center console builds are boring, so instead of 3D printing just another cup holder, I decided to make a no distractions phone mount with some extra modern day tech. And the first thing we'll need to do is grab some measurements. But this isn't the only way we can get the dimensions.
So after a bit of Google searching, I found this pre-made design that I 3D printed, and it definitely fits. But it's not exactly what I'm going for. It doesn't have enough room to put a phone in, and the design could use some work. But it doesn't make this completely useless, because we could use this as the base to make a new design.
To make our custom car part, we're going to be using CAD, or computer-aided design software. And after testing dozens of different programs, I like using Shaper 3D. You can even start your design by importing an existing STL. I also made an entire workshop on automotive design, and I'll leave the link in the description below. But what I like best about Shaper 3D is you can save your project and reopen the same design even on an iPad with an Apple Pencil. And here we have the design imported directly in Shaper 3D, but you can't modify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the opacity of the original design and go back and copy the pattern. And here we're going to use the rectangular tool to outline the top of the part. Now, once we have that shape, we can move it up and then align it to the top. Now we can go ahead and create another rectangular shape for the top lip. And once we have these two shapes created, we'll be able to hide the original design and do an extrude. So here I'm making the shape for the interior part, and now we can unhide the model and match the part to the exact measurements for the bottom and the top lip. We can also make a few fine adjustments now with the layer that's shown. Here we can select the inner square that we extruded and hit the offset tool, which will allow us to extrude down, creating our shape. Now all that's left is to fix the finer details, and here at the top lip we're going to bring that in to match our box, and then we can combine both those parts into one object. We can also go and do some other minor details, such as rounding out our edges to also match that lip. And I forgot one other thing, which are the clips. And we can create that with the rectangular tool, then extrude, select the side, and create a triangle shape, and use the copy tool to create multiple clips around the entire part. So to make our 3D printed car part design even better, I bought these wireless magnetic chargers, or MagSafe chargers. I wasn't sure about the dimensions, but after taking some measurements, the chargers should be able to fit inside the new design. But instead of adding the measurements into the entire part, I'm going to make a small prototype to test the fitment first. And here's what I 3D printed with some leftover gold PLA filament. The design fits pretty snug with the proper offset, which we also cover in the workshop, but I'm glad I printed a prototype first. It looks like the cap won't work due to the lens on my phone, but let's see what it looks like with the case on. It still has some clearance issues, but all I'll need to do is grab some measurements and incorporate another offset into the final design. And to make things even easier, I created a mock iPhone with a center punch to guide where the MagSafe charger needs to go. But with the phone in position, it wasn't fitting quite right. So I used the extrusion tool and increased the depth. I also changed the angle of the phone so it would be easier to slide into place. And now the wall can be formed along with the matching angle that I gave the phone. Then I used the center punch to create the circle for the MagSafe charger. And here's where the prototype comes in. I was able to grab the same measurements and use it for the new design, and after the USB insert was drawn, all we need is another extrusion and one more to make room for the camera.
So here's the next prototype. Pop that guy into place. Here you can see that there's another offset there, and let's give it a test fit. All right, so I think that's going to do the trick, but we're going to add a few more things before we print the entire part.
Now we're going to add a MagSafe charger for some AirPods. They'll go right in the front with the measurements from our prototype, and the USB slot will go right at the bottom with another extrude. But it didn't quite cut out the bottom, so I added another square, and that seemed to do the trick. And then I added a nice fillet to match the case. And to make things even easier, I added a punch out for the MagSafe chargers too. Now the design is ready to print. And for 3D printing final car part designs, I like using the Bamboo Lab H2S. It has a built-in heating chamber, which makes printing with high heat and UV resistant filaments like ASA easy. And we're also using a fume extractor to help exhaust any bad fumes during the print.
So here's the design, and I'm surprised how well it came out. It has a spot for the iPhone and also for our AirPods. So now the moment of truth, let's see if everything actually fits inside. Here goes second charger. Okay. Uh-oh. So I don't think that's going to work. I don't have enough room. Now, I originally did that intentionally because I wanted this design to fit other larger iPhones, but in order to get the AirPods to fit in here, I'm going to have to slightly readjust and pull this back a little bit, and then I should have plenty of room to add that there. And it looks like I have to move this secondary charger down and then change the angle a bit further out in order to have a nice fit in there. Now the good news is Shaper 3D does have a history function which will allow us to go back and change the positions of some of those sketches that we did, and it will update the whole design, which will allow us to make quick edits without having to redo the entire design. Now that does mean that we're going to have to print this all over again, but I think it'll be well worth the wait.
And after making all the changes, I also decided to increase the wall thickness, which was a little tricky because making the walls thicker around the entire part wouldn't let the front MagSafe charger fit. So instead, I just pulled the back wall out and created two separate rectangles with another extrusion along with the fillet that left space for the front MagSafe charger to still fit.
So take a look at that. The MagSafe chargers fit super well, and having that hole in the back of this one really helps, but I forgot to add one here, so that might be a challenge to take out. It looks like things are gonna fit, so let's give it a try. Wires will feed through here. Oh, nice. Look at that. Fit perfect, and it's in there nice and solid. So the question is, will it actually charge the devices? So let me plug these in temporarily and let's find out. Phone, and it's charging. Nice. It's a little bit hard to see, but trust me, it definitely is charging. And a pair of AirPods that actually support wireless charging. Oh, did you hear the chime? So the fillet is not all that great. That can slightly be readjusted, but for the most part, I like how the design came out, and it is pretty sturdy with the thicker walls and slides in and feels pretty solid. So if you want to learn how to design and 3D print more car parts like this, watch this next video right here.